Not worshipping the master, not following Tang San, not joining the martial soul hall, at the beginning of his journey through the Douluo Continent, Blue Star Youth Chen Dao, relying on his familiarity with the plot, first obtained the immortal grass in the eyes of Ice and Fire Liangyi, and then used his soul power to refine his body, cultivating an incredibly powerful physical body. Can the 7 monsters without fairy grass become gods? What kind of sparks will arise from the collision of body refining and soul power? All of this is unknown. Book Friend Group 982563343 Keywords of the novel. Douluo. 7 kill sword god with no pop-up window, Douluo. 7 kill sword god TXT complete collection download, Douluo. 7 kill sword god latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. See Demon City, Chen family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 See Demon City, Chen family Douluo Continent. There is a city called Haiyao City near Hanhai City. There is a magnificent and grand mansion located in the western district of the city. The mahogany gate stands in the middle, with a huge stone lion on each side. Inside the door, there are small paths paved with stones swirling between rows of houses. In the middle of the house is a spacious martial arts arena. Ha! Ha! Smell the sound and look away. I saw a small figure on the martial arts arena wielding a wooden sword and sweating profusely. Over and over again, as if tirelessly. The young man is about 5 or 6 years old, with clean and sharp silver short hair. His slightly immature face is covered in sweat, and his clear eyes reflect determination. The naked skin of the young man has a healthy wheat color due to the accumulated wind and sun over the years. At the edge of the martial arts arena, there is a small pavilion where a couple of men and women sit. The man was dressed in white, with silver hair shining brightly in the sunlight, and his face, as cold and stern as knives and axes, was even more handsome and imposing. The woman was dressed in a golden red long dress, paired with her wine red hair. From a distance, she looked like a burning flame. The woman looked at her son, who was sweating profusely in the martial arts arena, with a delicate face full of heartache. Not long. Ha ha! The young man gasped heavily, put down his wooden sword, and struggled to untie the weight on his body. The weight landed on the martial arts arena with a slight vibration, indicating that the weight was not light. After 6 years, can you finally awaken your martial soul? The young man lay on the ground in a large figure without any image, murmuring softly. The young man's name is Chen Dao Chu. He was originally an ordinary young man with a blue star, adhering to the 360 lines and producing the top scorer in each line. The idea that there are millions of roads and every road leads to Rome, he resolutely devoted himself to society after graduating from junior high school. Unexpectedly, I ran into obstacles everywhere and finally found a job I didn't like, barely making ends meet. The ups and downs of life have smoothed out the edges of youth, and the intrigues in the workplace have also eroded their innocence. Rich people are what life is, those without money can only be called survival. In his spare time, his only hobby is reading novels and admiring the ups and downs of the scenes in novels. Since reading the novel, Douluo Continent, I have been filled with longing for various powerful martial souls, splendid soul skills, and strange soul beasts in Douluo Continent. Chen Dao didn't expect to cross the Douluo Continent by chance. Remembering the experience before crossing the dust road, I felt a bit unbelievable at first. That day, on his way to work, he lost his mind when he waited for a red light, and the green light on the sidewalk turned yellow before he regained his senses. He quickly ran to the opposite side of the road. At this moment, a large truck rushing for a red light came roaring with its horn, without any intention of slowing down. Because in the eyes of the truck driver, the dust road can be completely crossed at first. In Chen Daochu's heart, his life suddenly appeared, year after year, day after day, repeating itself without any change. Opening his eyes from bed every day, he could basically live the next day in his mind. He was tired of this kind of life like a walking corpse, which was not what he wanted. By a stroke of fate, Chen Dao stopped in the middle of the road. The driver cursed and pressed the brake hard, but it was already too late. Accompanied by the piercing sound of brakes, the truck wheels rubbed against the ground, leaving long wheel marks. The truck collided fiercely with the slightly frail body of the young man amidst the screams of passers-by. The young man's thin body flew into the air under tremendous force, then flipped twice in the air, leaving a long trail of blood on the ground, and then fell heavily onto the cold and hard road. At this moment, a sudden mutation occurred, and an old man with crane hair and a youthful appearance, who was agile in his movements, rushed out of the crowd and walked towards a young man lying on the road, unaware of his life or death. At the moment the old man walked out, the people around him seemed to be influenced by something, their eyes became dull, and their movements became slow. Fortunately, this situation only lasted for a few breaths. When the onlookers regained their senses, the old man had already disappeared from the scene with the body of the young man. Chen Dao, who had lost consciousness, did not see this scene at first. When he became conscious again, he found himself in Douluo Continent. He was originally an orphan in his past life, grew up in an orphanage, and had no worries, so he did not reject crossing to the Douluo Continent. And upon learning that his second grandfather was Qin, he was even more overjoyed. Although it was not mentioned in the original work of the Chen family, Chen Dao initially learned about the origin of the Chen family from his parents. Many years ago, Chen Dao's great-grandfather, the 98-level peak Douluo Shili sword hero, Chen Jianjun, took his two sons, Chen Xian and Chen Chen, also known as Chen Dao's grandfather, to challenge the strongest martial soul palace in the mainland, the 99-level Qian Douluo. At that time, Qian Douluo was hailed as the strongest and unparalleled Douluo in the sky of Douluo Continent by the entire Soul Master world. However, due to the significant difference in soul power between the two, the challenge failed and they ultimately died from serious injuries. The Chen family is almost a single generation, so after the death of Chen Jianjun, the Chen family lost their greatest reliance. In his early years, Chen Jianjun sought the ultimate swordsmanship by coming to challenge him everywhere, offending many powerful forces. Subsequently, Chen Xian and the Chen Chen brothers were pursued by their father's former enemy and lived a tumultuous life. Later, he was forced to part ways during an encounter with his enemy. Among them, the younger Chen Xian, due to her outstanding talent and the help of a benefactor, achieved the title of Douluo during her escape, and killed the enemy who was chasing her. As his older brother, Chen Chen had slightly inferior talent and had an old illness, which prevented him from breaking through the bottleneck of being granted the title Douluo. He fell on the road to escape. When Chen Xian found the Sea Demon City all the way, his brother Chen Chen had already passed away. But he also left behind his bloodline, which was his father, Chen Daorong, who was originally in Douluo Continent. Later, Qin guarded Chen Daorong and gradually grew up. After establishing a foothold in the Sea Demon City, he disappeared and reportedly went to repay his kindness. Chen Dao, who was familiar with the plot, naturally knew that Chen Xian had gone to the Seven Treasures Glass Sect, one of the top 3 sections. The Seven Treasures Glass Sect, although one of the top 3 sects and possessing wealth that could rival the enemy, lacks even a combat-capable soul master due to the inherited auxiliary martial souls. We can only find some soul masters with external surnames who have no background but have strength to act as storefronts. Son, don't lie down anymore. The ground is cold. After practicing, come over and have something to eat. I have already asked someone to prepare the medicinal bath for you. Su Lingyun felt a little heartbroken when he saw his son lying on the ground. At first, his son said he wanted to exercise his physique, but Su Lingyun advised him a few times. However, after much persuasion, he gave up and instead prepared a medicinal bath for Chen Dao to repair his body, in order to avoid the aftermath of high-intensity training. Chen Dao's eyes slowly focused and he spoke in response, I know, mother, I'm coming over right now. After finishing speaking, he stood up and patted the dust off his body, and casually wiped his hands off his clothes. Walking to the pavilion, he took a few bites of pastry and drank a cup of tea that Su Lingyun had cooled for him before getting up and walking towards his room. "Father, mother, take your time eating. I'm going to soak in a medicinal bath. The medicine should be dispersed later. After taking a medicinal bath, come to the study to find me after dinner," Chen Dao reminded softly. "Yes, father." Chen Dao respectfully responded. "Daorong, do you think your son can really absorb soul rings of higher age in the future by exercising his physique so hard?" Su Lingyun couldn't help but doubt his son's back. "I should be able to do it. I can truly feel that Daochu's physical strength is no longer weaker than that of an ordinary one-ring war soul master. My son said he saw this in an ancient book in the family library. Do you believe it?" "Why don't you believe it? There are so many things we don't know about Douluo Continent. Maybe it's a letter left by a senior expert. Our library has a lot of miscellaneous books, so what's so strange about it?" There was no expression on Chen Daorong's cold and stern face. "This is my first time writing a novel, and I really like Douluo Tongren. However, the updates from my followers are too slow, so I tried writing one myself. My writing style is not very good. I hope brothers can forgive me." End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Planning for the Future. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Planning for the Future. In the room, Chen Dao was only wearing shorts and soaking in a wooden bucket. Due to the mixing of some precious herbs, the hot water in the wooden bucket presents a strange color. As the heat continued to rise, he felt the exhaustion on his body gradually dissipate. At the same time, the medicinal lubricant mixed in the hot water silently strengthened his body. As a transmigrator, Chen Dao naturally knows that the lifespan of soul rings that soul masters can withstand will increase with the growth of their physical fitness. He has been consistently exercising for the past 2 years, and has also taken some natural ingredients and treasures. He often takes medicinal baths. At first, Chen Dao felt that his physical strength should not be weaker than that of a soul master who had absorbed soul rings. Perhaps he could withstand the first soul ring for 600 or 700 years. And the average soul master's first soul ring has a maximum lifespan of 432 years, so he is stronger than others in the beginning. Soaking in the bucket, feeling the pleasure brought by the improvement of physical fitness, Chen Dao's thoughts gradually drifted away. "I will soon have a martial soul." According to the original works, mentoring, Yu Shaojiang, the higher the quality of the martial souls of both parents, the greater the chance of being inherited by future generations. If both parents have similar martial soul qualities, there is a very small chance that they will become the unparalleled twin martial soul, and they are likely to inherit the 7-kill sword martial soul of the Chen family. After all, my mother's martial soul, the flame bird, is just a high-level martial soul. The 7-kill sword is truly a top-level martial soul, known as the first attacking power in the mainland. Of course, this is only on the surface, and divine-level martial souls are not known to the world. Speaking of the 7-kill sword, Chen Dao thought it might be the first weapon of divine-level martial soul. After reading the novel Douluo Continent in his previous life, he looked up a lot of information related to him because he liked the character Qinshin. Upon learning about the 7-kill sword soul, the sword spirit is innate, and it comes with a set of 7-kill sword techniques. Moreover, once the 7-kill sword technique is mastered, it can awaken the 7-kill realm. Later, Chen Dao initially felt that aside from the advantage in numbers, this soul may be the #1 weapon soul in the mainland. Not to mention anything else, let's just talk about the Haotian hammer. Without the divine skill, the Sumi hammer, the martial soul itself is definitely not as good as the 7-kill sword. The Douluo Continent itself has its own martial souls in its own realm. Apart from the divine-level martial souls, only the 2 Spider Emperors from Bibi Dong and the Blue Silver Emperor's martial souls after Tang San's awakening can be seen, which shows how strong the 7-kill sword is. Moreover, the Chen family has awakened astonishing talents in the 7-kill sword soul. Qin Xuan, Chen Jianjun, and Qin Xin are all innate full soul powers. Chen Chen, the grandfather of Chen Dao Chu, and his father Chen Daorong have slightly inferior talents, but both have innate level 9 soul power. So in a sense, the 7-kill sword is the first martial soul of Douluo Continent. As for the title of Haotian Hammer, the first martial soul in the world, a part of it was created by Tang Chen. The stronger ones are Tang Chen and the De Su Mi Hammer, as well as the technique of exploding rings, rather than the martial soul of Haotian Hammer itself. After all, Haotian Hammer has countless martial souls, while Haotian Douluo only has one in each generation. The other part is because Ding Xingwang, a member of the Haotian sect, has a dual Douluo sect, including Tang Chen and a 3 Douluo sect. As for the number of soul masters below the title Douluo, there are countless. This is only on the surface. Chen Dao Chu remembers that there are several elders who have broken through to the title Douluo in the dark, but they are not known to the outside world. So, the Haotian Hammer became the number 1 weapon and martial soul in the mainland. Compared to the power of the Haotian sect, the 7 Treasures Glass sect and the Blue Electric Tyrant Dragon sect, both of which are the top 3 sects, appear slightly shabby. The people of the 7 Treasures Glass sect are unable to break through the martial soul limit, and at least they have 2 Super Douluo level sect protectors. Surprisingly, there is only one title Douluo in the entire Blue Electric Tyrannosaurus Rex Dragon sect, and the vast Blue Electric Tyrannosaurus Rex Dragon sect is supported entirely by one Yuanzhen. The martial soul hall can be said to be the best object for establishing power. While it has enough fame, its strength is not enough. It is said that when persimmons are picked and squeezed, they have fame but their strength is not strong. If you don't destroy them, who will you destroy? These are all digressions. For Chen Dao Chu, the most important thing now is to enhance his strength. After the awakening of the martial soul, as long as the time is ripe, he will leave the Sea Demon City and go to the 7 Treasures Glass sect to find his second grandfather, Qin Xin. Then find an excuse for Qin Xin to take herself to the Sunset Forest. I believe that for the sake of Chen Xian's face, Dugu Bo would not mind borrowing a few fairy grass plants from him. My own talent is not weak, and with the enhancement of immortal grass, it shouldn't be a problem to challenge the divine level in the future. However, for the eyes of ice and fire, Chen Dao was not in a hurry at all. He once asked his father about the age of his second grandfather Qin Xin, and his father's answer at the time was 80 years old. Chen Dao remembers in the original work that Chen Xian died under the Rakshasa artifact in order to save Tang San during a divine battle with Bibi Dong. At first, seeing Chen Xian die in battle in the original work, Chen Dao's initial intention was difficult to calm, and he always felt that this was a great regret in Douluo. Qin Xin was devout to one of the swords, but ultimately died in the hands of a false god. People like Chen Xian, who have devoted all their efforts to swordsmanship, and even developed special soul skills such as the integration of human and sword, can be considered as a proper template for the protagonist in other novels, standing on par with the divine like immortal. Unfortunately, they died so suffocated in the original work. But since there is a chance in this life, I will definitely not let the tragedy happen again. To get to the point, when Chen Xian died in battle, he was 100 years old, while Tang Sanqing was 20.5 years old. That is to say, Qin Xin is 75 years older than Tang San, and this year Qin Xin is 80 years old. Not surprisingly, Tang San, who is 5 years old, is probably making millet porridge for his alcoholic father in Xinghun village. It's still a long time before Tang San meets the Ice and Fire Liangyi eyes, leaving a long time for Chen Dao Chu. So he's not in a hurry, but it's useless. At least he'll have to wait until he reaches level 30 or above for his parents to allow him to go out and explore. Suddenly, a cold wind struck, causing Chen Dao Chu to shiver. After coming to my senses, I realized that the water in the bucket had already cooled down. Chen Dao Chu quickly came out of the bucket, picked up the towel placed by the maid to wipe off any moisture on his body, and casually took a clean piece of clothing from the wardrobe to put on. "Young master, dinner is ready," said the maid's voice outside the door as she dressed neatly in the early stages of her life. "Come in." Chen Dao sat leisurely on the sofa, watching the maid place exquisite plates on the table. After the maid left the room, Chen Dao indulged in the sumptuous dinner on the table. Due to his physical cultivation, he has a high demand for food, so he always eats a big meal after exercising to replenish the energy needed for his body's growth. Halfway through, the table was in a mess. Chen Dao drank tea after dinner to relieve the greasiness, and then stood up and walked out of the room. Before leaving, don't forget to ask the maid to clean the room. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Awakening Martial Soul. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Awakening Martial Soul. Walking along the long gravel path in the courtyard, I arrived at my father's study door. Chen Dao slammed the door with excitement. He naturally knew that his father called him over to awaken his martial soul. The awakening of martial souls is something that every person from Douluo Continent will experience, which is more important to them than the college entrance examination in their past lives. The quality of the martial soul can completely determine the future of this person. Whether to stand at the top of the mainland or become the laughing stock of others like Yu Shaojiang in the future will soon be clear. Come in. The sound of Chen Dao echoed from inside the room. Taking a gentle breath and letting go of the distractions in his heart, Chen Dao pushed open the door. Entering the door, Chen Dao saw 6 black stones on the ground arranged in a hexagonal formation. Chen Dao and Su Lingyun stood at the edge of the formation. Seeing his son enter the room, Chen Dao used his profound soul power to block the entire study. Although few people come to his study, and his martial soul awakening is not afraid of being disturbed, he doesn't mind being cautious for his only son. Are you ready? Chen Dao asked seriously. Well, we're ready. After receiving a positive response, Chen Dao took out a blue crystal from the storage soul guide and placed it aside. Immediately after, his long silver hair moved without wind. In the next moment, a silver sword with a length of 4 feet and 3 inches, a width of 3 inches, and a length of 1 foot and 2 inches appeared in his right hand. This was the 7-kill sword soul of the Chen family. 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 4 black soul rings rose from the feet of Chen Dao, rhythmically moving. The last soul ring, which was slightly red and black, indicated that its age was very close to 100,000 years. With the release of his father's martial soul, Chen Dao felt a huge sense of oppression mixed with a sharp breath rushing towards him, making his breathing even faster. This is still the result of Chen Dao's convergence. If he were to exert all his strength, it is difficult to imagine how strong his momentum would be. Seeing the 8 soul rings rhythmically moving around his father, Chen Dao's eyes were filled with longing. This was the first time that Chen Dao had seen his father release his martial soul. Prior to this, he only knew that his father was a level 85 soul Douluo, and he did not know that his father's 8th soul ring had been around 90,000 to 100,000 years. That is to say, the soul Douluo with a slightly inferior soul ring ratio may be able to defeat 4 or 5 by Chen Dao. If combined with the blessing of the 7 kills realm, it may be comparable to the newly entered level 90 title Douluo. Of course, this refers to comprehensive strength. If we only look at attack power, many title Douluo may not be able to match Chen Dao. Not only for the sake of martial souls, many 9th soul rings of Douluo may not have a lifespan of 90,000 years. Stand in the middle of the magic formation, don't be nervous. Our children of the Chen family have always had good talents. Chen Dao comforted his son while his expressionless face couldn't help but show a hint of nervousness. Yes, don't worry about your son. Even if you can't awaken the spirit of the 7-kill sword, it's okay. Mom's flame bird is no worse than the 7-kill sword. Upon hearing these words, Chen Dao couldn't help but twitch at the corner of his mouth. Don't be afraid of anything. Is there someone like you who comforts people like that? Chen Dao couldn't bear to watch anymore. What do you mean? Are you saying that the flame bird is better than the 7-kill sword? I didn't mean that. I see that's what you mean. Chen Dao said. After a moment of silence, Chen Dao looked helpless and said, "Let's awaken our son's martial soul first." Upon hearing these words, Su Lingyun gave him a white glance and ignored them. At first, Chen Dao couldn't help but feel a slight warmth in his heart. He quickly dispelled various distractions in his mind, restrained his mind, and stood in the center of the formation. When his son stood still, Chen Dao quickly took a shot with one hand, and the soul power of the 6 paths emitting silver light injected into the 6 black stones on the ground. Suddenly, a golden aura rose from the stones, forming a golden light shield that enveloped the dust path standing inside the formation. Under the cover of golden light, Chen Dao initially felt a warm and indescribable comfort all over his body. As the warmth spread throughout his body, Chen Dao felt a clear sensation of something breaking inside his body, and then all the warmth converged towards his right hand. Chen Dao instinctively extended his right hand and spread out his palm. Chen Dao and Su Lingyun also nervously gazed at their son's right hand. At the next moment, a silver-long sword 4 feet 3 inches long, 3 inches wide, and 1 foot 2 inches long appeared in Chen Dao's hand, just like Chen Dao. Although there had been speculations for a long time, he really inherited the 7-kill sword, and Chen Dao couldn't help but feel excited. Since he has awakened the soul of the 7-kill sword, as long as his innate soul power is not too low, it is almost certain that he will become a god in the future when he gains the opportunity of the Ice and Fire Liangyi eyes. The couple looked at their son's excited expression and exchanged a smile of relief. Although the probability is small, there is a possibility that the martial soul of Chen Dao will undergo reverse mutation. Take a look at Yu Xiaojiang and you will know that born into the blue electric Tyrannosaurus rex family, the martial soul is a pig, becoming the laughing stock of the entire martial soul world, unable to lift its head for a lifetime. Fortunately, this situation did not happen to Chen Dao. Test your soul power. As he spoke, the blue crystal floated in front of his son under the control of the dust path's soul power. Without hesitation, Chen Dao reached out and grabbed the blue crystal, injecting the newly awakened soul power into the crystal. Suddenly, the blue crystal emitted a dazzling light, illuminating the entire room a bit. Innate full soul power. Good. 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 You truly deserve to be my son, Chen Dao. Looking at the dazzling blue crystal, Chen Dao's usually calm face was full of excitement. What are you, the son of Chen Dao? This is a good son born to me, Su Lingyun. Su Lingyun was unwilling to stand by. Chen Dao looked at his parents helplessly shaking his head, but in fact, he was more excited than anyone else. The person with innate soul power is me, okay. The family's laughter and conversation seemed very harmonious. Dao, please go back and rest first. Tomorrow morning, I will take you to hunt for soul rings. After playing, the expression on Chen Dao's face returned to calm. Yes, father, then I'll go back first. Chen Dao responded and said good night to his parents before planning to go back to his own room. Son, wait a moment, mom has a gift for you. Chen Dao turned around and saw his mother holding a wristband-style storage soul guide. Chen Dao took the soul guide and glanced at his mother, who had a smile in her eyes. Her heart warmed up, but she didn't say much. She just thanked her softly and left the room. As an orphan in his past life, he cherished the hard-won family affection for him. He always remembered the kindness his parents had given him, only waiting for the opportunity to repay him well in the future. It's no use talking too much now. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Departure, Soul Beast Forest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Departure, soul beast forest. Returning to the room, Chen Dao did not go to bed immediately. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, following the method taught by his father, he began to cultivate soul power. Under the excitement of awakening his martial soul just now, he was completely awake and knew the principle of accumulating water into a deep abyss. In the quiet of the night, only the unknown chirping of insects could be heard from the yard one after another. At the beginning, Chen Dao practiced all night with the accompaniment of insect chirping. In the early morning, the crescent moon was thrown into the sky like a dull pebble. Chen Dao slowly opened his eyes that had been tightly closed all night, and stayed up all night. Not only did he not feel tired, but he also felt a bit energetic. Is this the benefit of soul power? If I stayed up all night, I would still be energetic the next day. If it were in my previous life, I would probably have become a national treasure now. Turning over and getting out of bed, Chen Dao moved his stiff limbs for a while, then briefly washed up and stood in the small courtyard breathing in the fresh morning air, beginning to practice the 7 kills sword technique. This is a habit he has developed over the years. Even if he has not awakened his martial soul, without soul power, it will not hinder the cultivation of swordsmanship. Under the guidance of Chen Dao had already practiced the first move of the 7 kill sword technique, heavy sword without edge, until entering the hall. Now that he has a martial soul, he can now use this special sword technique. Not bad, as long as you're not arrogant or complacent. I'm worried that you might slack off because you're naturally full of soul power. At some point, Chen Daorong stood not far away with his hands on his back, watching him. Chen Daorong, dressed in white, triumphed over snow. Her silver hair swayed gently in the breeze, like a banished immortal who did not indulge in worldly pleasures. Father. Chen Dao put away his martial soul and turned around to salute Chen Daorong. At the beginning of the Tao, cultivation is like sailing against the current. If you don't advance, you will retreat. You must not slack off, you know. Chen Daorong looked at his son's immature face and admonished him. Chen Dao naturally wouldn't slack off just because he was born with full soul power. Although his talent is strong, compared to Tang San and Bibi Dong's twin martial souls, Qian Renshue's innate soul power at level 20 is also inferior. If you don't improve yourself quickly, it will be difficult to even protect yourself when there is a war in Douluo Continent in the future, let alone protect your loved ones. Father, don't worry, I understand the principle that there are heavens outside the world and people outside the world. Well, let's go. The carriage is already waiting outside the door. After speaking, Chen Daorong turned around and walked towards the door. My son has always been a worry-free person for Chen Daorong since he was young. No matter how hard or tiring his cultivation is, he never complains about exhaustion. A sensible person is heartbreaking. Seeing his father leave, Chen Dao hurriedly took steps to follow. Outside the door, a luxurious carriage was parked by the roadside, pulled by 2 seahorses, both of which were century-old soul beasts. The tails of the 2 seahorses each have something like a bubble, and their bodies float in the air. When they walk, their bodies wriggle like caterpillars, and their speed is not slow. Coupled with their gentle nature and dual use on land and sea, this spirit beast is very popular in most coastal cities. Master, young master, please get in the car. Seeing the father and son come out, the coachman quickly stepped forward and respectfully bowed. Well, let's go. Chen Dao followed his father and the 2 of them got on the carriage, one in front and one behind. The space inside the carriage was very large, and the 2 of them found a comfortable place to sit down after getting on the carriage. At the reminder of Chen Daorong, the coachman began to drive the carriage slowly forward. This type of carriage is different from regular carriages, as the seahorse does not come into contact with the ground when walking in the air, so it is not bumpy. The destination of the father and son's trip is a soul beast forest outside the sea demon city, which will take at most half a day. However, Chen Dao naturally did not waste this small half-day of time and closed his eyes to enter the cultivation state. After all, according to Yu Shaojiang, after reaching the bottleneck, soul masters can cultivate soul power even without attaching soul rings. Chen Dao nodded with satisfaction at his son's serious attitude towards cultivation, and then used his strong soul power to isolate his son from external influences. The coachman quickly drove out of the sea demon city and headed towards the outside. Half a day passed quietly during the initial cultivation of the dust path. At the reminder of Chen Dao Chu withdrew from his cultivation state and slowly opened his tightly closed eyes. The carriage also stopped at the right time, and the father and son exchanged a glance before getting off the carriage. Chen Dao waved his hand and gestured for the coachman to wait here. Chen Dao only realized at the beginning that he had arrived at a small town like a market. A manually paved path, lined with shops on both sides, mostly selling weapons and armor, as well as some medicine shops. This can all be understood, after all, they are all things needed to hunt soul beasts, but even restaurants and hotels have them. Isn't this too exaggerated? What does that, red-sleeved square, mean? After fighting soul beasts and playing poker. The streets were bustling with people coming and going, and various shouts kept coming and going. The noisy atmosphere made Chen Dao Chu feel as if he was not here to hunt soul beasts, but to go shopping. Shaking his head, Chen Dao Chu quickly put aside the slightly absurd thoughts in his mind. Don't be surprised, wherever there are soul beasts, there are soul masters, and soul masters are a wealthy group, so there are many people who want to earn soul master money. Looking at his son's slightly strange expression, Chen Dao spoke up and explained. It is not difficult to explain that this soul beast forest here is the only place where Sea Demon City and several nearby small cities can hunt land soul beasts. The Sea Demon City and several nearby cities do not belong to the two major empires, and the only powerful force near the sea, Sea God Island, is independent of the sea. So these cities exist independently and do not need to be under anyone's jurisdiction, and because the security in this city is not very good. Several cities nearby, including Sea Demon City, have become places where many inland criminals are at large. Chen Daochu's late grandfather Chen Chen came here in the first place, which was also related to the chaos here. Of course, after the establishment of the Chen family, many villains who came from the inland to cause trouble were cleared, and the chaotic situation in the Sea Demon City improved significantly. Due to the mixed culture of good and bad in these cities, even several major forces within each city were created by soul masters from the inland. So it makes almost some small towns outside the soul beast forest lively. The land soul master wants to find a suitable soul ring on the sea, and the difficulty coefficient is more than tens of times higher than finding it on land. This soul beast forest has become the only place where land soul masters who come from the inland can hunt soul rings. Let's go. Passing through this town is the soul beast forest. The 7-kill sword was released in the air, and Chen Dao and his son stepped on the sword and flew towards the direction of the forest. The passers-by below couldn't help but cast envious gazes. Looking at the envious, jealous, and resentful gaze of the pedestrians under his feet, even with the initial nature of Chen Dao, he couldn't help but feel a slight sense of superiority. The surrounding scenery was constantly left behind by the two people. Soon, a huge forest appeared in their sight, and Chen Dao slowly landed on the ground with his son. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Sword King Bamboo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Sword King Bamboo. The two of them arrived at the entrance outside the forest, and the scene before them shook Chen Dao Chu a bit. The tall trees indicate their age, and on the outskirts of the forest, there is a huge steel fence that faces one side of the forest, revealing a large number of spikes. The height of the fence exceeds 10 meters and looks extremely solid. Outside the fence, a team of 100 soldiers were cruising there, all dressed in fine iron full-body armor, holding long spears, with a well-organized military appearance. The 100 steel soldiers stood together, giving a sense of solemnity. Can the martial soul hall extend its hand overseas and still have such a great influence, even controlling resources such as the soul beast forest that are extremely important to soul masters. Seeing this group of soldiers, Chen Dao couldn't help but feeling a little strange in his heart. "Father, is this from the martial soul hall?" Chen Daochu gestured to the soldiers and asked. "This is an army built by several major forces in the city, used to guard the soul beast forest while charging fees to soul masters who go to the forest to hunt for soul rings." Chen Daorong showed great patience towards his son's curiosity. "Oh." The two walked to the door, and Chen Daorong took out a token and handed it to the guard soldier. Chen Dao glanced at it for the first time. Unlike the token in the martial soul hall, there was a mermaid-like image painted on this token, and he didn't know what it was. "Master Chen, please." The captain of the soldier responsible for checking the warrant did not take the token. When he saw Chen Daorong, his face immediately showed a respectful light and he quickly ordered the soldiers to dodge a passage. Following his father, Chen Daochu walked into the forest. Suddenly, a fresh air unique to nature mixed with a hint of dampness rushed towards us, making us feel relaxed and happy. At first glance, there were towering trees, with no visible boundaries. A path paved by predecessors penetrated through it, like a vast abyss. Chen Dao initially observed the surroundings. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, "Father, didn't you say that entering the forest requires paying a fee?" "Why?" "Don't think too much, as a foreign family, our Chen family didn't participate in it." Chen Daorong didn't know what his son meant, paused for a moment, and continued. "Back then, your second grandfather helped me establish the Chen family. Taking advantage of your second grandfather's strong strength, although the local forces in the Sea Demon City were unwilling, they were helpless. However, they also gave some conditions, and the Chen family was not allowed to interfere in this soul beast forest, which is one of them. As for that token, it was given to me by an old man from the demon family of the Lord's mansion. The demon family is the leader in establishing this army. Let's go, you'll know about this in the future." After speaking, Chen Daorong grabbed his son's small hand and walked towards the depths of the forest. The father and son walked towards the forest, one in front and one behind. As he walked, Chen Daorong introduced his son to various soul beasts he encountered along the way and methods for identifying their age. Chen Daochu also combined the knowledge taught by his father with the mutual verification he learned in books. Chen Daochu also learned from his father that the forest in front of him had not been cleaned up like the soul-hunting forest managed by the martial soul hall. If it has not been cleaned, it means that there are more types of soul beasts inside than in the soul-hunting forest, and the age of soul beasts is also much higher. There are even 10,000-year-old soul beasts in the central area. Of course, the probability of encountering rare soul beasts in this forest is higher, and the relative danger level is much higher than the soul-hunting forest, controlled by the martial soul hall. However, for the dust path carrying the dust path, this danger can be almost negligible. The father and son walked into this dense forest and headed towards the depths of the forest. The two of them had already penetrated deep into the forest and encountered many soul beasts along the way, but none of them were suitable. Either the age is too high, or the type of soul beast is not suitable. However, apart from a few soul beasts that attacked him without opening their eyes, Chen Daorong did not kill the encountered soul beasts, only drove them away. Chen Daorong reminded his son, if it's not necessary, try not to kill soul beasts casually. Chen Daochu nodded and agreed, I know my father. He certainly knew that the growth of soul beasts would take an extremely long time, and soul masters were constantly emerging like mushrooms after rain. If this continued, one day the soul master profession would disappear from Douluo Continent. Of course, if there is someone who doesn't kill with long eyes, don't be polite to them either. As he spoke, Chen Daorong casually slapped a slightly larger cat-like spirit beast not far away and killed it. A bright yellow soul ring slowly condensed above the corpse of the spirit beast. This is a tiger demon cat with extremely strong aggression. Even if we ignore it, it will still attack us. Chen Daorong explained the reason why he killed this soul beast. Chen Daochu said, Tiger demon cat. Father, what kind of soul beast are we looking for? After walking for a long time, Chen Daochu couldn't help but ask as he looked at a nearby iron-armored bear drinking water by the river with a cute and silly demeanor. I have been in the soul beast forest for a while, but I haven't been able to find a suitable soul beast. Chen Daochu was a bit anxious. Hunting soul beasts actually relies more on luck. Our family's 7-kill sword martial soul, as long as the soul beast has strong attack power and fast speed, can be considered. There are also some soul beasts with special attributes that are almost suitable for most martial souls. However, these soul beasts are very rare. I am prepared for your first soul ring, which is a plant-based soul beast called sword bamboo, but it is an optional choice. So I want to take you on a chance and see if you can meet a higher quality soul beast. Looking at his son's anxious expression, Chen Daorong said calmly. He did not say that another purpose was to increase his knowledge of the dust path. My first soul ring comes from a 400-year-old silver-toothed sword-toothed tiger. This type of soul beast is relatively rare, and its bloodline strength is much stronger than ordinary soul beasts. For soul beasts of the same age, the stronger the bloodline, the stronger the soul skills that soul masters can bestow. Your second grandfather's first soul ring comes from a sword bamboo plant that has been around for over 400 years. The soul skill that brought to your second grandfather is only a 30% increase in attack power, while my first soul skill can increase attack power by 50% and speed by 20%. As a soul beast from over 400 years, the quality of the soul ring is vastly different. Worried that his son wouldn't take it to heart, Chen Daorong spoke a lot in one breath. After all, soul rings cannot be replaced if they are attached, so every soul ring chosen by a soul master must be carefully chosen. I remember, father. Chen Dao responded, knowing all of this. However, as he was hunting soul rings for the first time, he couldn't help but feel a little anxious. Let's go. After crossing that river, not far away is the place where sword bamboo grows. Chen Daorong saw his son listen in, nodded, and continued to walk forward with his son. Not long after crossing the river, a verdant bamboo forest came into view. Looking at the tall and slender sword bamboo trees in front of him, Chen Dao appeared somewhat excited at first. Sword bamboo is emerald green throughout its body, with sword-shaped leaves swaying in the wind. Standing outside the bamboo forest, one can feel a sharp aura rushing towards them, as if tearing the intruder to pieces. The maximum lifespan of the Soul Master's first soul ring is approximately 423 years, but with your strong physical fitness, this 500-year-old sword bamboo should be able to serve as your first soul ring. Chen Daorong pointed at a sword bamboo plant that was about 5 meters tall and opened his mouth to give directions. Father, why is the sword bamboo in the middle white jade colored? Following the direction pointed by his father, Chen Daochu noticed a jade white bamboo in the group of sword bamboo, which appeared crystal clear under the sunlight. Its leaves were also different from other ordinary sword bamboo, presenting a magnificent golden color, shining brightly in the sunlight. All the emerald green bamboo around grew around this jade white bamboo, as if the people were supporting their own emperor. This is Sword King Bamboo, the absolute king of this sword bamboo group. Many soul beasts living in this group have their own kings. For example, in a group of flame lions, there will be a flame lion king, in a group of flame monkeys, there will be a flame monkey, and in a group of wind wolves, there will be a wind wolf king. If the age of these clan kings is appropriate, they will definitely be the highest quality soul rings. Unfortunately, this Sword King Bamboo has been cultivated for 600 years, otherwise it would definitely be the best choice as your first soul ring. Chen Daorong explained to his son. Of course he didn't miss it, he just felt that his son's physical strength was not enough to absorb the soul ring of this Sword King Bamboo. After listening to Chen Daochu, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. He didn't know Sword King Bamboo, but he knew Blue Silver King. As mentioned in the original work, it is the superior soul beast of blue silver grass. Although it is not as good as the main body of Tang San's mother, the Blue Silver Emperor, it has also been cultivated for more than 80,000 years and 5,000 years. The king of a blue silver grass cultivates to this extent. How can sword bamboo be stronger than blue silver grass? From this perspective, it should be no surprise that this sword king bamboo has been cultivated for 100,000 years without any problems. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The First Soul Ring of the Seven Kill Sword. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The First Soul Ring of the Seven Kill Sword. Father, I want to absorb the soul ring of this sword king bamboo. Chen Dao said with a firm expression, feeling that his physical fitness was definitely stronger than his father thought, and should be able to withstand an ordinary soul ring of over 700 years. Even if this sword king bamboo, which is over 600 years old, is stronger than ordinary soul beasts, it should not be unable to absorb it. Please feel it carefully, said Chen Dao, taking his father's hand and placing it on his shoulder. Chen Daorong looked at his son's stubborn appearance, and his thick soul power entered Chen Daochu's body along his shoulder. After the soul power had been circulating in his son's body for a week, Chen Daorong looked at his son with a slightly strange expression and withdrew his hand. Perhaps you can give it a try. My son's physical strength is much higher than he expected. I used to only have a rough idea of his strong physical fitness, but I didn't pay close attention to it. Today, I gave him a big surprise. Chen Dao began practicing the 7-kill sword technique with his father after the age of 4. Later, he added weight to himself, which not only did not delay the cultivation of the 7-kill sword technique, but also slowly increased his physical strength. It just causes significant damage to the body, which is why Chen Dao always takes a medicinal bath after completing his cultivation. His physical strength continues to strengthen during the process of repairing this injury. Seeing that his son's physical strength was almost able to withstand the soul ring of this sword king bamboo, Chen Daorong was not troubled. He exuded a terrifying pressure and pressed against the void of the bamboo forest with one hand, only to see sword bamboo trees brushing and falling on both sides, making the sword king bamboo standing in the center of the bamboo forest particularly prominent. The weakness of Jianzhu lies in its roots, and the same goes for Jianwang bamboo. Let's go, these Jianzhu have been suppressed by me. After finishing these, Chen Daorong turned his head and said to his son. Chen Dao sighed at his father's strength while summoning his own martial soul, and walked excitedly toward Sword King Bamboo. Entering the bamboo forest suppressed by his father, Chen Dao suddenly felt his body sink and his footsteps slow down. It can be imagined how much pressure these sword bamboo trees bear. After all, his father's pressure deliberately avoided his own. Walking up to Sword King Bamboo, he looked at Sword King Bamboo, who could not move under his father's pressure. Without hesitation, Chen Dao aimed at its root and forcefully inserted the 7-kill sword. As the 7-kill sword was inserted into the root of the Sword King Bamboo, all the golden leaves on the body of the Sword King Bamboo shook together. Unable to take any precautions, Chen Dao was startled, but soon all the branches and leaves on this Sword King Bamboo fell weakly. Subsequently, yellow light dots began to converge above the body of Sword King Bamboo, eventually forming a bright yellow soul ring. Chen Dao pulled his soul ring out of the bamboo forest, looking at the struggling sword bamboo plants beside him. Although he knew they could not break free from his father's oppression, he couldn't help but accelerate his pace and quickly walked out of the bamboo forest. Sit cross-legged, pull the soul ring onto the 7-kill sword, intending to guard the martial soul. Seeing his son step out of the bamboo forest and let go of his suppression of the sword bamboo, he walked over to his son and said in a deep voice. Having found an open space, Chen Dao quickly sat down cross-legged. With the traction of soul power, the bright yellow soul ring of Sword King Zhu came to Chen Dao's head. At first, Chen Dao felt a strong pressure on himself, causing his body to creak. If it weren't for his body exercising and taking many tonics, it's likely that this pressure would have crushed him. Without giving him too much reaction time, the soul ring of Sword King Zhu became the size of a bracelet and suddenly fell onto the 7-kill sword. At first, Chen Dao felt a scorching energy pouring into his body from the 7-kill sword. In an instant, he only felt his 5 internal organs burning, a blazing energy continuously flowing into his body from the 7-kill sword. Chen Dao Chu couldn't help but tremble, and a painful expression climbed onto his immature face. No matter how the power of the soul ring impacts your body, remember to stay awake and use the soul power according to the method I teach you. Chen Daorong looked at his son's painful expression and quickly spoke up to remind him. Upon hearing his father's words, Chen Dao Chu gritted his teeth and silently activated his soul power. With the movement of soul power, the burning sensation in Chen Dao's body gradually weakened and turned into a refreshing and nourishing sensation. With the nourishment of clear water, Chen Dao Chu clearly felt that his soul power and body strength were slowly increasing. Chen Daorong watched as his son's expression gradually returned to normal, breathed a sigh of relief, and continued to guard by his side. The sun gradually shifted towards the west, and a few clouds in the sky were reflected in red. Chen Dao Chu slowly opened his eyes, with a flash of brilliance in his eyes, feeling the much stronger soul power and body than before. Chen Dao Chu couldn't help but feel overjoyed. He clenched his fist slightly, and the abundant strength in his body gave him a flash of inspiration in his heart. How is it? How is the absorption of soul rings going? Is there any discomfort in the body? Seeing his son open his eyes, Chen Dao couldn't help but ask with concern. Father, rest assured that the absorption of the soul ring went smoothly without any discomfort, and I feel that my soul power has increased by at least 2 levels. Interrupted by his father, Chen Dao looked around at the traces of his father pacing back and forth, and then at his father who didn't show any signs on his face. He felt a little amused, but his heart warmed slightly. Normally, after a soul master absorbs the first soul ring's soul power, it is generally around level 11. The soul ring you absorb has been around 600 years, and coupled with the strong bloodline of Sword King Bamboo, it is not surprising to increase your soul power by 2 or 3 levels. Your first soul skill is an amplification soul skill, right? Chen Daorong saw that his son was fine and came to inquire with peace of mind. Well, you guessed it right. My first soul skill is called 7-kill striking, which not only increases my attack power by 80%, but also ignores the opponent's defense by 20%. Speaking of his first soul skill, Chen Dao Chu himself was also very satisfied. Although the increase seems to be much smaller than that of the beast martial soul, it is because the basic attack power of the weapon martial soul is much stronger than that of the beast martial soul. Of course, the beast martial soul can be attached to the soul master, thereby comprehensively enhancing the attributes of the soul master, which is incomparable to the weapon martial soul. It can only be said that each has its own unique strengths. Well, this soul skill is indeed very strong. However, it is reasonable for the 600-year-old Sword King Bamboo to bring you a powerful soul skill. Since you have also obtained the soul ring, let's go home. In a place where his son couldn't see, the corner of Chen Daorong's mouth slightly raised, indicating that he was in a good mood. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Return Trip. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Return Trip. The evening breeze gently caressed the young man's face, drifting towards the distance with a hint of shyness. Standing on the broad body of his father's 7-kill sword, Chen Dao couldn't help but feel 1,000 emotions as he looked at the forest under his feet. I didn't expect that the greatest wish of my past life could be easily realized in Douluo Continent. I don't think any man can refuse the romance of flying with a sword. It wasn't until a down-to-earth touch came from under his feet that Chen Dao Chu regained consciousness and realized that he had already arrived in the small town with his father. Not far away, the previous coachman led the carriage to the two of them without asking much, but respectfully invited the father and son to board the carriage. After Chen Daorong nodded and gestured, the two of them successively got onto the carriage. The coachman began driving the carriage towards the direction of Sea Demon City. Inside the carriage, Chen Dao had the intention of trying his previous discovery, but as he looked at his father across from him, who was closing his eyes and recuperating, he shook his head helplessly, restrained his mind, and entered a state of cultivation. The sunset shone through the window of the carriage, casting a slight glare on the delicate face of the young man. At the beginning of the dusty path, which had already ended its cultivation, I lay by the window of the carriage and looked at the brightly lit Sea Demon City not far away, feeling as if I were from another world. Since arriving in Douluo Continent, he has hardly ever left his home, and this is the first time he has seen the night view of Sea Demon City. A bright moon hangs high in the sky, and various shops and restaurants are neatly arranged on both sides of the street. There is also a house called Drunken Spring Tower, where several women stand at the entrance, dressed in fancy clothes, swaying their bodies and scratching their heads at passers-by. Why is there everywhere? Chen Dao was a bit speechless at first. Turning to the other side, there was a row of snack stalls under the street lamp, with a few people gathered around each stall, shouting one after another. Looking at all of this, for a moment, Chen Dao even felt like he had returned to his past life and couldn't help but sigh. A world without city management is really good. Not long ago, at the Chen family, a family of 3 were eating dinner at the table. At first, Chen Dao looked at his mother who kept picking up vegetables for him, and then at his father who was silently eating a bowl of white rice next to him. His heart was filled with warmth, and he secretly vowed to protect his loved ones in the future war. We still need strength. I don't know if we can prevent the war from happening in advance. Maybe we can give it a try, but all of this requires strength. Without strength, it's difficult to protect ourselves, let alone protect anyone. With these thoughts in mind, Chen Dao was not at all slow in his mouth as he kept feeding the dishes his mother had given him, and when he had time, he even picked up some dishes for his father. Whenever Chen Dao picked him vegetables, Chen Dao would secretly show a pleased smile. Quickly, the family of 3 finished their meal and Chen Dao was introducing his first soul skill to Su Lingyun. Upon hearing that his son's first soul ring came from a soul beast that had been around for 600 years, Su Lingyun was not only happy and proud, but also blamed Chen Dao for allowing his son to take risks. Chen Dao didn't explain either, just glanced expressionlessly at Chen Dao. Chen Dao immediately spoke well for his father, feeling that his throat was almost dry and smoking. Su Lingyun finally gave up in anger. Seeing Su Lingyun silent, the father and son exchanged a glance and wiped the non-existent cold sweat from their heads together. At this moment, Su Lingyun spoke up and said to Chen Dao, "Tomorrow, Mom will take you to the Sea Demon Junior Soul Master Academy. It happens that the academy has just started." Upon hearing these words, before Chen Dao could even speak, he said, "The teachers there are no higher than the Soul Emperor. Besides, my son has the same martial soul as me. Isn't it better for me to teach him at home?" Seeing his father take over the conversation, Chen Dao continued to remain silent. After all, he didn't want to go to any junior college to play house with a group of little brats. Although he doesn't look big, he was at least in his teens in his past life, and he's still in his 20s when he's in his 20s. Teaching your son during his vacation to make more friends would also be beneficial. If he doesn't go to college, would he stay at home with you every day and be with your father, who only sees swords in his eyes? Su Lingyun gave her husband a white glance and couldn't help but feel angry. Compared to practicing with Chen Dao, studying in a junior college can be considered as a vacation. Looking at Su Lingyun's persistent expression, Chen Dao opened his mouth and said softly, "All right, I'll send my son to the Sea Demon Junior College tomorrow." "What? Did I agree? Didn't you send me to the college? Why don't you ask if I'm willing?" Seeing the 2 people talking, they made a decision for themselves. Chen Dao felt a little helpless and complained, "Roast. Since that's the case, Dao, you should go back and rest early. You've been tired all day today. I'll take you to the junior college tomorrow." Su Lingyun lightly ordered his son to leave. I know, Mom, then I'll go back first. Chen Dao was not as brave as his father. He obediently responded and even closed the door before leaving. You see how sensible my son is. Can you spare me dim sum? My son has suffered a lot in the past 2 years. If he can relax a bit in college and have a complete childhood, you will know how to practice swordsmanship. Su Lingyun looked at Chen Daorong with a look of hatred towards iron and steel, and began preaching in the style of Tang monk. Chen Daorong said, Outside the door, Chen Dao, who had not walked far, heard the voices of the two of them. Oh, no, only the voice of Su Lingyun. He quickly quickened his pace and walked towards his own courtyard. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Preliminary Experiments on Soul Power Refining. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 8 Preliminary Experiments on Soul Power Refining. In the room, Chen Dao sat cross-legged on the sofa, his mind racing. After absorbing the soul ring of Sword King Bamboo, Chen Dao found that his physical strength had increased stronger than he had exercised for 2 years. What is a soul ring? Soul rings are formed by the lifelong cultivation of soul beasts after their death. Therefore, 100-year soul beast produces a 100-year soul ring, a 1,000-year soul beast produces a 1,000-year soul ring, and so on. He certainly knows that the essence of soul rings is soul power, but their forms of expression are different. Absorbing soul rings can enhance physical fitness, which means that soul power itself can enhance physical fitness. With the improvement of soul master cultivation, the number of years that can absorb soul rings is also constantly increasing, which indicates this point. When a soul master absorbs soul rings, a portion of his soul power is absorbed by his body to strengthen his physique, while the majority is converted into soul power cultivation. The same principle applies to cultivating soul power in daily life. When a soul master cultivates, he absorbs the surrounding unowned soul power into his body, most of which is converted into soul power cultivation, and a small portion remains in his body, which is absorbed by his body and unconsciously strengthens the soul master's body. That's also why the higher the level of soul master, the longer the number of soul rings they can absorb. Thinking of this, Chen Dao couldn't help but think of the physical cultivation in the cultivation novels he had read in his previous life. Physical cultivation involves constantly refining one's body with animal blood, spiritual energy, or heavenly and earthly treasures, ultimately achieving a terrifying level of breaking through mountains and rivers with one fist and breaking through 10,000 methods with one force. Not only is the attack powerful, but also the defense is equally unstoppable. Have you never eaten pork and seen a pig run? As an old bookworm, Chen Dao naturally knew that refining one's body must go from simple to complex, from the outside to the inside, from skin and flesh to blood, then from bones to bone marrow, and finally to the 5 organs and 6 internal organs. Although I don't have a detailed method for refining my body, the effect of soul power refining is greatly reduced. However, if physical exercise is feasible, one can also use more means to protect oneself. If animal blood is used in Douluo Continent, it is necessary to use the blood of soul beasts, let alone the question of whether soul beast blood is easy to handle. Even if I could get it, I wouldn't dare to absorb it like that. They refine animal blood into pills and use other things to neutralize the frenzy factor in animal blood. He doesn't know how to refine pills. If he just absorbs them like this, he might end up getting possessed by demons. So, let's first rule out the method of refining soul beasts with blood. Tian Kai and Dibao are rare, so if you want to refine your body, you need to start with soul power. As for the soul ring, soul masters can only absorb soul rings when their cultivation reaches the level bottleneck. If they dare to forcibly absorb soul rings, their chances of exploding and dying are over 90%. So this method is also useless. Although soul power and spiritual energy are different, they can both enhance physical fitness. As long as one's body can withstand the strengthening of soul power cultivation is feasible. In terms of soul power, it can be divided into 2 types. There are two types of soul power. One is the unowned soul power floating in the air, and the other is the soul power cultivation obtained through personal cultivation. After thinking for a moment, Chen Dao initially pulled the wandering soul power around him, but did not absorb it into his body, but rather gather them in one's own hands. Then, he divided these soul powers into strands. When decomposing, the dust path felt a bit difficult at first. He speculated that this should be due to his weak mental strength. His still weak spiritual power was mobilized, and the tiny strands of soul power slowly crawled into his body under the control of his spiritual power. Soul power merged with the cells in his skin tissue, and then Chen Dao felt that the cells at his fingertips seemed to have undergone some changes, as if nothing had happened. Is this done or not? He looked at his fingertips with some confusion, but after a while, he couldn't see anything. Pulling some soul power again, Chen Dao Chu processed it as usual, injecting all of this soul power into his fingertips. At first, I felt a slight enhancement in the dust path this time. However, the effect is not significant. Next, it's the soul power obtained from one's own cultivation. At the beginning, Chen Dao immediately controlled the few soul powers in his body, emerging through the body. Under his spiritual control, he also decomposed those soul powers into strands. He clearly felt that his soul power was much easier to control than his unowned soul power. Forget it, give it a try before we talk. Under the control of Chen Dao Chu, a strand of soul power slowly entered the skin tissue from his pores and penetrated into the cells inside his body. The next moment, Chen Dao Chu let out a painful cry, only to see the small piece of skin on the back of his hand blurred with blood and flesh. Which link went wrong? I controlled my soul power very steadily. It's strange. Looking at the blood and flesh blurred skin tissue, Chen Dao murmured to himself. Then, he didn't give up and tried again. This time, his soul power slowly entered the skin tissue under his control, and then slowly came into contact with the cells. With a painful cry, another wound appeared on the back of his hand. It seems that the body cells are not enough to support the enhancement of soul power. Perhaps I will try again after obtaining the second soul ring and increasing my body strength. Chen Dao was a bit unwilling at first, but there was nothing he could do about it. He had to wait for his body to strengthen again and try again. As for exercising like before, Chen Dao never considered it at all. Not to mention its low efficiency, time-consuming and laborious nature, the improvement is not significant, and the benefits are not as high as cultivating soul power. Therefore, it was a good choice before awakening the martial soul. Although the idea of soul power cultivation failed this time, Chen Dao Chu summarized it and found many things. Firstly, soul power cultivation should use the soul power cultivated by oneself in order to maximize the effect. Because unowned soul power does not have affinity with him, like wild soul beasts, it is difficult to control. And his own soul power has been refined and has a high affinity with him, like a domesticated soul beast that is gentle and easy to control. Moreover, one's own soul power has been refined, and the quality of soul ring enhancement is much higher than that of an unowned soul power. According to his experience accumulated from reading novels, the higher the quality of energy used for physical exercise, the stronger the strengthening effect on the body. Of course, it doesn't mean that without a master's soul power, it's just a matter of achieving twice the result with half the effort. Secondly, Chen Dao initially discovered that soul power cultivation requires subtle control of spiritual power, resulting in a rapid loss of spiritual power. If spiritual power is depleted and then replenished and restored, then spiritual power may grow rapidly in the process of consumption and replenishment, just like the cultivation of soul power. However, this is a clumsy approach and requires time to accumulate. However, in the Douluo Continent where there is no spiritual cultivation method, even if it is a foolish method, as long as it can increase spiritual power, if it spreads, it is enough to make people crazy. Perhaps this can give me the fourth soul ring of 10,000 years, like Tang San. Due to the vibration of the soul, even if your physical strength is sufficient and your spiritual power is insufficient, as long as you dare to absorb it, there is basically a dead end. However, this provides him with a glimmer of possibility. Of course, the prerequisite for all of this is the ability to practice physical exercise. Shaking his head, dispelling some chaotic thoughts, he took out a bottle of healing medicine from his mother's stored soul guide, applied it to the back of his hand, and began practicing cross-legged. Since soul power forging is temporarily not feasible, let's release it for now. One night without a word, time flies rapidly in the cultivation of the dust path. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The Son of the Elder. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The Son of the Elder. After practicing all night, Chen Dao freshened up and washed up, dressed neatly, and then pushed open the door. On the horizon, a red sun is slowly rising. Looking at the wound on the back of his hand, Chen Dao sighed slightly helplessly. My plan to refine my body has not yet begun, and if I have absorbed the second soul ring, it won't work. Perhaps only after experiencing ice and fire refining can I realize my idea of forging my soul power. I hope the second soul ring can give me some surprises. Setting aside distractions, standing in the courtyard, summoning one's own martial soul, and practicing the 7 kill sword technique. In order to gain control of the 7 kills realm as soon as possible, the cultivation of the 7 kills sword technique never stopped at the beginning of the dust path. As early as before, he had not awakened his martial soul, and under the guidance of his father, he wore a heavy load to practice the 7 kills sword technique. The 7 kill swordsmanship consists of 3 moves. The first move is called the EP without a blade, which uses soul power in a special way to unleash stronger attack power than usual. An extremely strong single attack, combined with the amplification of the first soul skill, should be able to break the full defense of non-defensive second ring soul masters when fully unleashed. Unfortunately, it seems a bit cumbersome, and in actual combat, no one stands still for you to fight. The first form is relatively simple. After 2 years of cultivation, Chen Dao has already mastered this form to a great extent. The second style is called 7 Emotions and 7 Injuries, which is a group control skill that is quite powerful. Of course, the difficulty of cultivation is not at the same level as the first style. The called 7 Emotions and 7 Injuries refers to exercising and integrating one's own martial soul in battle. Simultaneously cultivating the 7 emotions, one can understand the 7 emotions of a person. Joy, anger, sorrow, thought, sadness, shock, and fear. Only by cultivating both can one enter a higher realm, which is why those with higher cultivation levels are able to remain calm in the face of difficulties. The 7 Emotions and 7 Injuries sword, with different moves, triggers different emotions. The second style is not something that can be learned by burying oneself in practice like the first style. You must personally experience the 7 emotions and have an understanding of each emotion in order to combine your own insights and learn the 7 emotions and 7 injuries. As for the final move, I have a rough idea that it is necessary to combine the first and second moves. Each move has a terrifying attack power and can interfere with and control the enemy's emotions. Diligence is certainly a good thing, but cultivation also emphasizes a balance between work and rest. Just as Chen Dao had just finished practicing a set of 7 kill swordsmanship, the voice of Chen Dao Rong came from behind. Chen Dao Rong hopes his son will work hard, but he does not want his son to excessively cultivate. Although there may be some contradictions, it is a normal psychological activity that every parent has. Putting away his martial soul, Chen Dao turned around and saw a young man about his age following his father. The young man, with short golden hair and thick eyebrows and big eyes, followed his father and looked at him curiously. Seeing Chen Dao looking over, he politely nodded and didn't say much, looking very shy. This is the son of Elder Jining, named Jinyu. We will go to the Sea Demon Academy with you to study, so that you two can take care of each other in the academy in the future. Let's go, the carriage is already waiting outside the door. Seeing that his son had briefly greeted Jinyu, Chen Dao spoke up and introduced himself. Without waiting for his son to reply, he turned around and walked towards the door. Chen Dao glanced at Jinyu and quickly followed suit. The three of them arrived at the door, and Chen Dao looked at his son's instructions and said, "This place is not far from the Sea Demon Junior Soul Master Academy. I have already arranged for your enrollment. At the beginning of the day, you were stronger, and Jinyu has not yet obtained the first soul ring. Do you know that you need to take care of Jinyu more in the academy? Go ahead, I won't go there." "Well, I know now, father." Chen Dao earnestly agreed. The two of them had just boarded the carriage when the little boy named Jinyu breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing Chen Dao staring at him with a strange expression on his face, he scratched his head and said awkwardly, "Hello, my name is Jinyu. The master's aura is really too strong. By his side, I dare not even breathe." "Your name is Chen Dao, right? Can I call you Chuj in the future?" "Call me Chen Dao or Chen Gu." Chen Dao looked speechless and almost glanced away, not realizing that this kid was talking a lot. "Why? Isn't Chuj pretty good? Do you want me to throw you down?" Chen Dao initially felt that this kid was intentional, but he had no evidence. "Okay, brother Chen. Chen Gu, the master said you are already a battle soul master. Are you born with full soul power?" Speaking of innate soul power, Jinyu's slightly naive face was filled with envy. "Yes, I have innate soul power." Chen Dao patted Jinyu's shoulder and said, "But don't be discouraged either. As long as you work hard to cultivate, you will definitely narrow the gap between us. Come on. Jinyu. Dot." Glancing at Jinyu, whose face had been hit by a blow, Chen Dao thought to himself, "If you don't learn well at a young age, it's just me." Jinyu, who had been struck, stopped speaking. Chen Dao was naturally happy and pure, and looked out the window at the scenery, feeling a bit lost in thought. Sea Demon City is adjacent to the sea, and the main source of income for the Chen family is the development of marine resources, which are then traded to some inland families. There are a total of 2 elders with foreign surnames in the clan, along with 1 guardian commander, which is the entire high-end combat power of the Chen family. The elder Golden Eagle has a strength of over 70 levels of Soul Saint level, and the martial Soul Golden Feather Eagle is not weak in both martial arts and defense. Coupled with the advantage of flying martial souls, it is quite powerful. Moreover, it is said that the elder and his father had already known each other since they were young, and they even saved their father's life. The two of them once traveled together on the continent. Later, with the help of his second grandfather Chen Xian, his father established the Chen family, and Jining joined the Chen family as an elder with a different surname, mainly responsible for the development of marine resources. So, although the great elder is an elder with a different surname, he holds a relatively high position in the Chen family and has a considerable voice. My father is dedicated to practicing swordsmanship, and all matters of the clan are decided by my mother Su Lingyun. I heard from my mother that the elder has helped a lot, and my mother, no matter how powerful, is also a woman who sometimes cannot control the situation. The second elder, Sua Qianxiu, also has the strength of the Soul Emperor level. The leader of the guards, Yin Mingho, is also a strong member of the Soul Emperor level. Among them, the second elder is responsible for transporting the precious materials mined by the eldest elder to the inland for trading with some large families, while the leader of the guard stays behind the family to handle some trivial matters. My parents asked me to take care of Jinyu. On the one hand, it was because Jining was kind to his father, and on the other hand, he was close to the Chen family. On the other hand, it should be because he wanted Chen Dao to leave a good impression in front of the elder. In order to better control the family in the future, unfortunately, Chen Dao had no intention of doing so at all. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Sea Demon Soul Master Academy. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 10. See Demon Soul Master Academy. On the carriage, Jin Yu sat quietly in the corner, looking like, I'm very well behaved, as if it wasn't him who had just pulled Chen Dao to ask questions. Looking at Jin Yu huddled in the corner, Chen Dao Chu rolled his eyes. Through the car window, watching the people coming and going on the street not far away, Chen Dao Chu's thoughts drifted away. In fact, compared to going to college, he prefers to practice with his father at home. It is inevitable that the progress of one's soul power cultivation in the college will be slowed down by other courses. In the original work, Tang San's twin martial souls, combined with innate full soul power, surprisingly rose to level 19 in 5 years of junior college. This also includes absorbing the soul power brought by soul rings. On average, it's over 3 levels per year, which seems quite slow in the early stages of the dust path. After all, soul masters have the fastest cultivation progress before level 30, and this speed gradually decreases after level 30. Among them, besides practicing the unique skills of the Tang clan and working in a blacksmith shop, which occupied most of Tang San's time, the courses in the academy also delayed Tang San's early soul power cultivation. However, Chen Dao didn't have as much to learn as Tang San at the beginning. In addition to the required courses in the college, he only needs to take the time to practice the Suifeng sword technique taught by his father and the 7-kill sword technique that comes with the 7-kill sword, and integrate them into the classroom. Afterwards, the remaining time can be used to cultivate soul power. In this way, with his talent not weaker than Tang San, he can at least cultivate to level 30 or above after graduating from the Junior Soul Master Academy. In the Douluo Continent, Soul Lord can do preliminary self-protection, and Soul King and Soul Emperor are not just cabbage, they can be seen everywhere. He also knew that his mother insisted on sending him to college for his own good, and there were some things he couldn't learn at home. Roasted sweet potatoes, freshly baked sweet potatoes. A shout interrupted Chen Daochu's thoughts. Lifting the curtains and looking out the window, I saw an old man in his 60s, with gray hair and wrinkles on his face, pushing a small cart while shouting. On the small cart, there is a small stove with a circle of sweet potatoes placed at the edge. In the cold morning air, it emits hot air accompanied by bursts of fragrance, looking particularly tempting. There are various shops on both sides of the street, including clothing stores, restaurants, and seafood shops, but the seafood shops here sell the essence of various ghosts, as well as some rare minerals and medicinal materials in the sea. There were many people gathered around the roadside stalls one by one, appearing lively and extraordinary. Looking at everything in front of him, Chen Daochu couldn't help but think, if we set aside the 2 floating seahorses and soul beasts next to us, and the antique architectural style, all of this seems to be no different from the past life. Chen Daochu noticed a clearly academic-style architectural complex not far away, thought for a moment, and spoke up to ask the coachman to stop. What's wrong, Brother Chen? Seeing Chen Dao's early call to stop the carriage, Jin Yu was somewhat puzzled. Not far away is the college, let's walk over there. Alright, Brother Chen, let's go take a look over there. It seems that Jin Yu has forgotten about the unpleasant experience just now, and his small face, which had been collapsing all along, also bloomed with a bright smile. Little fart child is just a little fart child, as if he has never seen the world before. Watching Grandma Jin Yulu enter the Grand View Garden, Chen Daochu shook his head with some disdain and said to himself, this is my 2nd time going out to the city. Do you think I'm proud? The 2 of them jumped off the carriage one after another, and Chen Daochu asked the coachman to go back and report. After the coachman left, Chen Daochu walked towards the old man selling sweet potatoes with a curious Jin Yu looking around. 2 young masters, can I buy a roasted sweet potato? It's just roasted and still hot, just 1 copper soul coin. Seeing the 2 of them dressed in luxurious clothes and coming straight towards him, the old man quickly spoke up and asked. Let's have 2. Glancing at Jin Yu, who had a hopeful but hesitant expression, Chen Daochu spoke up. Hey, okay. You take it. The old man's face was full of grooves, revealing a happy smile. The old man vigorously wiped his wrinkled hands against his clothes before picking up 2 sheets of oil paper to wrap the 2 sweet potatoes and handing them to Chen Dao. Chen Dao took the sweet potato and whispered his gratitude. He casually took out a golden soul coin from the storage soul guide and threw it to the old man. Before he could react, he quickly pulled Jinyu into the abortion. When the old man realized, there were no more figures of the 2. The old man stared blankly at the golden soul coin and bit it on his lips. After confirming its authenticity, he excitedly put the coin into his pocket and quickly pushed the cart away from the crowd. A golden soul coin is nothing to Chen Dao, but for the elderly, it is enough to support their family's snacks and drinks for several months. He can give more, but he is afraid that his kindness will bring trouble to the old man, which may not be beautiful. It's okay if he didn't have the ability in his past life. In this life, since he has this ability, Chen Dao doesn't mind helping the weak when he can. Chen Dao and Jinyu each had a roasted sweet potato and enjoyed it. Not far away, a stone-repaired gate stands tall, with a blue background and black-framed plaque above depicting the 4 characters Sea Demon Academy of Dragon and Phoenix Dance. A table was placed at the entrance, with several boys and girls aged around 5 or 6 gathered around it. A young man in his 20s sat at the table, taking notes and recording something. Seeing this, Chen Dao was not in a hurry to get closer. Anyway, time is not tight, just standing not far from Jinyu, eating sweet potatoes and waiting. After several young girls and boys gathered around the table left, Chen Dao pulled Jinyu, who was eating sweet potatoes with his head down, and quickly walked over. "Hello, is this the registration office for the Sea Demon Academy?" Chen Dao looked at the young man sitting at the table, appearing indifferent, and asked. "Do you have a recommendation letter?" The young man did not answer Chen Dao's question, but instead spoke up and asked. Chen Dao glanced at the young man at first, but without further ado, he took out a letter from his father before leaving the storage soul guide and handed it to the man. After reading the letter handed to him by Chen Dao, the young man immediately put away his casual expression, put on a smiling face, and said, "It turns out to be the young master of the Chen family. Lord Chen has already arranged everything, and you 2 come with me." As he spoke, he stood up and made a gesture of invitation to Chen Dao and the second person, then walked towards the academy. Chen Dao and the 2 quickly followed. End of this chapter.